It's Friday. It's a beautiful Friday. The weather is excellent. It's 90 outside, and we all here at the same time. What could be better? Hope everybody's had a great week. We are live now. Facebook is live on my left. Instagram is live on my right. And it's time. It's time for us to get into what we got to get into. It's time for all of us to work on our games right now. Let's get to it. As y'all are checking in, shout yourself out in the comment section, and I will shout you out back before we get started in this material. Bradley Anderson was good. You got the first comment. I think that's 2 days in a row for you. I will post this to my IGTV when it's over, but I can't answer your question unless you're in a live chat. That's the only way you get your questions answered. So as y'all watching this, we are going to get started in a minute. We got Avi checking in from OC. Was that Orange County? Shout out to Orange County. Shout out to OC, wherever OC is that you're referring to. Maybe it's Ocean City or Orange County. That's two different coasts. But as everybody checks in, shout yourself out in the comment section. We're going to get started right now in a minute. Yes, right now and in a minute at the exact same time. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day. Author of 27 books. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete. I should say the books first. So yeah, author of 27 books. Former 9-year professional athlete. I've done 4 TED Talks. I'm a keynote speaker, coach, consultant, product creator, online influencer, brand influencer, the CEO and owner of Work on Your Game Incorporated. And what I do is I spread this message here, Orange County. Shout out to Orange County. This message here that is called Work on Your Game. We got Charlotte in the house. Shout out to Charlotte. I know a lot of people in Charlotte. I've had some fun in Charlotte. And this whole thing called Work on Your Game is all about taking a pro athlete mindset and teach you how to apply it to your business, your sport, and your life. It's a 4-part framework made up of the discipline to show up every day to do the work, confidence to put yourself out there, mental toughness to keep showing up, and the personal initiative to make things happen. And it's for 3 specific types of people: people who need more skill, people who need to get better at performing, and people who need to get the right type of attention. And in order to do all of those things, you got to have your mind in the right space. And that's what we're talking about here today. Today's topic is how to stop living in fear. Now, there's a specific reason why I'm talking about this topic, because I was going to talk about something different here today, but today I was on, where was I? I can't remember what platform I was on. It might have been ESPN. And there was a story of this football player who plays for the Indianapolis Colts. I do not recall the gentleman's name, but it's not about him. Y'all can look it up if you want. But I'll tell you quickly what the story is and why it led to this topic. This guy, a linebacker who plays for the Colts, he's a black guy. He's probably, I'm going to assume that he's probably a relatively big guy because he plays for, the Indianapolis. He plays football and he plays linebacker. So he's probably big. He probably got big muscles. So he said he was at a Chipotle, and they said he posted this story on his IG. I didn't see it. I just saw the story on ESPN. That he had posted this story on his IG. It was Good Vegas. That he was in Chipotle, and he was with a bunch of friends, and all his friends was white, but he's black. And he said that the manager told him, this football player, that he had to leave Chipotle because apparently one of the customers, who was also white, said that him, the football guy, had used some vulgar language. So the manager told him, the black guy, you got to leave. And the black guy said, well, I didn't use vulgar language. That's a lie, or whatever they're saying is untrue. I don't know if he said it was a lie, but he said I didn't do that. So he wasn't trying to leave. He was resisting being told to leave the Chipotle. And this is in Indianapolis where he plays for the NFL team. Then the manager threatened to call the cops. And what ended up happening is the dude ended up, I guess they worked it out, and the dude let the manager know like who he was, that he played for the football team. And he said when they found out I played for the football team, their energy changed. But the whole point of him telling the story was that he felt a little bit violated. First of all, he felt like the guy was, not the guy, but the manager, who I don't know if the manager was a male or a female, but he felt like the manager was kind of like violating, trying to kick him out the store on a false premise. And secondly, when the manager threatened to call the cops, him as a black man, he felt like his life was kind of in danger. This is what he said. I'm paraphrasing what he said. He said, when I heard they were calling the cops, I thought to myself, I have a wife and I got a kid, and I'm thinking if the cops have to show up, I might not make it home today. And he posted this on his social media, of course, because that's the thing that you do now when something like this happens, especially if you happen to be a person of color, and it's going to become a story. Obviously, it did become a story. Again, I don't even remember this guy's name. I don't follow any NFL or NBA players online for that matter, but the story became a big enough story. I saw it on ESPN, and I read this, and it led to this topic that we're talking about right here. And I'm not saying, that's the background. That's the story that led to this topic right here. Him saying that he feels like if the cops get called to a situation, he feels like his life is in some way in danger. Now, what I'm going to be talking about here today is not telling you or telling him, by extension, that he's wrong for feeling how he feels. If he feels that the cops getting involved in this situation is putting his life in danger, then he has a right to feel that. He's not wrong for having that impression if that's how he actually feels. Who knows? We can't read the man's mind. What concerns me is that he went public with this information and saying that this happened, assuming that the whole story is true and that's what happened, and then him saying, well, I feel like my life is in danger because the cops got called. The thing that I'm concerned about when I hear something like that, especially from somebody who has a large platform, I'm assuming this guy has a pretty sizable audience. He probably played in college and got a lot of fans from there. He got fans from being in the NFL, fans of young black people who see him as a successful person who made it in professional sports. And then when he puts something out there like what happened is what happened. And then he says, I feel afraid because of the cops. Now, impressionable people, impressionable young people, black people who right now are just looking for any reason or anything to confirm the already held belief that a lot of black people have right now. Even friends of mine I've heard say this, that they feel more afraid of dealing with a cop because they think something might happen to them or their life might be in danger, et cetera, et cetera. Again, I'm not telling any of you, if you happen to be one of those people, I'm not telling you that you're wrong for having that feeling. If that's how you feel, that's how the hell you feel. And people feel like a police officer, coming across a police officer as a black person is a death sentence, is just more confirmation for you. I am not here today to change your mind about the cops. This conversation is not about the cops. I'm not here to change your mind about the cops, about black people, white people, black on black crime, white anything, or any kind of oppression or systemic anything. I'm not talking about none of that. Today we're talking about the individual, because anything that we talk about here at Work on Your Game, we always bring it back to the individual person, because the bottom line is we can't control other people. You can't control what another person does. I don't care if they're a black person, white person, police officer, homeless man. Doesn't matter. You can only control what you do. So today we are talking about how you can prevent fear from running your life, and you can stop yourself from walking around afraid of possibilities that have never actually occurred. This guy, obviously, he was referring to some of the recent things that have happened in America. Obviously, some violence that has occurred between police officers and civilians, especially white police officers and civilians of color. Now, we're not here to argue why it happened, who caused it, who's at fault, who's going to go to jail, who's to blame. We're going to figure all that's going to get figured out in due time. What I'm here to say is that even though those things have happened, and even if you may be a person of color, and even if you may come across a cop who is white, you cannot go through your whole life knowing that there are plenty of them out there, and there are plenty of us out there. You can't go through your whole life in fear of a possibility of something happening just because it happened to another person or several other people. That's the argument that I'm making up front, and I'm going to explain to you why I'm making that argument here today. And it's not going to be about other people. It's all going to come back to you. Point number one, fear is a very powerful energy. It's one of the most powerful energies that you can have in your life. Of all the emotions that you could go through, fear is probably at the top of the list when it comes to the strength of the energy and the power that it has to compel you to action, simply because fear was originally created to be a line between our living and dying. All right, back in the caveman days, quote unquote, when there may have been a saber-toothed tiger or some other deadly animal or some other fellow caveman who wanted to destroy you and kill you and take your woman and kids and eat all your food, you had to be really on point for any dangers that were around. You had to be really on point for the berries that you pulled off the tree to eat, because if they were poisonous berries, you would die, and if they weren't poisonous, you could live and have something to eat. So you had to be really sharp instinctively when it came to what to be afraid of and and what not to be afraid of. And these days, being that we don't have to just pick random berries off a tree without any idea what it is, we don't have saber-toothed tigers, at least not that I know of, around the corner maybe trying to eat us. For the most part, the people who live next door to us or in our neighborhoods aren't just going to come walk into our house and try to kill us to take our food because they don't have nothing to eat. For the most part, that's not happening. So we live in a relatively safe society compared to back in the day when there were no police. We didn't know what we were eating, and we didn't have control of animals. Nowadays, we have police. We know exactly what we're eating. We can Google it if we don't know. And we pretty much have control over wild animals. All right? We put them in cages and put them in zoos and all that. For the most part, they don't bother us because we can control them. So being that we have much less danger to deal with, the problem is our wiring as human beings, our internal wiring, that base lizard brain level wiring that we have that had fear in it, that has not gone away. We still have that fear, and that fear needs somewhere for that energy needs to be displaced somewhere. And this is why some people end up living their lives in fear of things, because there's somewhere that they got to put that fear. And as soon as they come up with any reason, any pretext to displace that fear towards anything, they use it. And these recent events that have happened in America have given everybody a great reason, not everybody, but a lot of people of color will say, a great reason to say, like this linebacker from the Colts said, I feel like my life may be in danger. I might not make it home because the cop got called into a situation. Even though the cops didn't even, at least from what I understand, the cops didn't even show up. Maybe they did, but obviously nothing happened to him. He didn't get arrested. The cops didn't, there was no argument between him and the cops. He obviously didn't die because he lived to tell the story and posted on his Instagram. So, but then him just saying, well, I feel fearful. And again, I'm assuming that he's telling the truth. And my also theory that him being as influential as he is, being at the position that he holds in his life, that is going to leave an impression on some other impressionable people who are going to say, damn, well, he was afraid, and he's a successful guy who plays in the NFL at the top of his career. I'm not at that level. I need to be afraid too. And now all that does is spread more and more fear to more people. Again, I'm not here to argue that he was wrong for saying it or for sharing the story. If that's what he wants to do, that's what he wants to do. He didn't say it to me. He just said it, period. I just happened to come across it. My argument is that we don't need to feel that kind of energy, because you know what happens when fear starts to have a ripple effect through an environment? Maybe you're seeing it right now. We have seen it in the past. We saw it back in 2007 through 2010. We weren't alive. Most of us weren't alive, but back in the 1930s, we saw it. And I'm sure we're going to see it again during our lifetimes. If everyone lives for let's say the next 20 to 30 years, we're going to see it. We get recessions, we get depressions, we get war, we get lack of communication, and we get conflict. That's what happens when people get afraid. When people are afraid, right now, there are a whole bunch of people who feel like they should be afraid of white people or afraid of the police. And what are we getting? We're getting a whole lot of conflict. There's a lot of conflict going on. I don't know exactly what the conflict is, who's conflicting with who. I don't always know. What the outcome is that people are after, I don't always know. But there is conflict going on. I think everyone can agree that there's some conflict happening right now. And we got a big event coming up in November called the presidential election. I guarantee there's going to be a whole lot more conflict in November. Why? Because a large mass of people are going to feel very fearful the day after that election. Whoever wins, the other side is going to be extremely fearful of the fact that they didn't win. They're going to be, extremely fearful of the fact that the other side that won now has the power, quote unquote, even though most people can't even name not one thing the president did has affected them directly. But what happens to you personally when you allow fear to take over your mind? What are the personal things that come around? First of all, it's hard to function. Any of you ever tried to just live a normal life or just go through your normal day and knowing that you had a really strong fear occupying your mind or in the back of your mind? It's hard to just function normally. It's hard to eat. It's hard to sleep. It's hard to be happy. It's hard to just enjoy your life when you're afraid of something or you have this impending doom in your mind and you can't stop thinking about it. It's hard to live when you have fear. I'll tell you a quick story that I heard from 50 Cent, the rapper. Now, everybody knows the story of 50 Cent. When he was coming up rapping, he got shot, and then he came back and became a superstar rapper. But I heard 50 tell the story that after he got shot, and before he started putting out the mixtapes and all that, when he started to just get his health back and get his strength back, that he felt very uncomfortable because he knew in the environment that he came from, once people found out that he didn't die from the gunshots, that they were going to try to kill him again. They were going to go shoot him again. Make sure you kill him this time because that was the goal the first time. If somebody tries to shoot you, they're trying to kill you. And especially as many times as he got shot at. So he said, I was really uncomfortable just dealing with that fear. I was always in this state of fear that somebody was going to try to finish the job. And the only time that I felt comfortable, the only time I wasn't uncomfortable, 50 said, was when I was going on the offensive and going and looking for them instead of waiting for them to come look for me. And I think if you listen to 50 Cent's music, I think you can hear the aggression in the music that maybe he wasn't just acting when he says what he says in his songs. When he went on the offensive, he let go of the fear. Now, I'm not telling you to go, if you're afraid of the cops, to go attack the cops. That's probably a bad idea. But what I'm saying is, when he put himself in a frame of mind that allowed him to let go of the fear, and for him that was going on the offensive and being aggressive, that might not be your way. Your way may be something different. Maybe being happy. Maybe focusing on your kids. Maybe focusing on the positives in your life. It doesn't necessarily have to be you got to go into an offensive or aggressive or attack other people frame of mind to get out of fear. It just means you need to do something that allows you to stop focusing on the fear, that will allow you to actually function as a person, which is the story that 50 Cent was telling. And when he started doing other things that allow him to take his focus off the fear, good things started happening for him. And I think since everyone here knows who 50 Cent is, I think we can agree that that process worked. So again, make sure you're separating the actual tactic from the strategy. The tactic was he went on the offensive as an aggressive person. You might not be that type of makeup, but you can figure out a way to take your mind off the fear, which is what 50 did. That was the strategy. The tactic was aggression. You don't have to be aggressive. Point number 2. The topic here today is how to stop living life in fear. Well, you should do an exercise called fear setting. Everybody here has heard of goal setting, right? You heard of setting goals. How about setting your fears? If you never heard of this concept, I would love to take credit for it, but I won't. I'll give credit to an author by the name of Tim Ferriss. He wrote all those 4-hour books, 4-Hour Work Week, 4-Hour Chef, 4-Hour Body, and a couple other books that are not 4-hour books, but very strong in strategy. Tim Ferriss is really good with strategic stuff, and he talked about this concept called fear setting. So fear setting works the same way that goal setting works. So in goal setting, you think about all the positive things that you want in life, and then you figure out what actions you need to take to get to the goal, right? Fear setting is you think about all the bad things that could possibly happen, that you're concerned about, the things that are worrying you, the things that have you stressed out. You think about all those things, and then you start to figure out, all right, what can I do about these situations, maybe to prevent them, or if they happen, what can I do to get myself back to where I was at? How can I get myself back to neutral? So what you do with fear setting, just consider the worst case scenario. So any of you right now, if you're afraid of getting fired from your job, or you're afraid of your wife leaving you, or you're afraid of dealing with the cops and something's going to happen to you, consider what the worst case scenario could possibly be. All right, and you're going to dealing with that worst case scenario, and we're going to start dealing with the fear rather than allowing the fear to control you as what is sweeping through the culture right now. A lot of people being afraid of stuff. A lot of people just say, oh, let's all just be afraid of something. Let's just say that we're afraid of anything that could possibly happen. How about instead you ask yourself, what's the worst possible scenario? All right, anything short of dying. Now, if worst possible scenario is you dying, nothing you can do about that. If you're dead, you're dead. Now, you ask yourself, even with that worst case scenario, let's say this guy who said, I'm afraid anytime a cop may come around because I'm black in America, and he has extrapolated what's happened to a few to think it could possibly happen to him. Now, again, not telling him that he's wrong to feel that way. I'm not telling you you're wrong if you feel that way. What could you do? Here's the fear setting question. What could you do to mitigate the chances of the worst case scenario occurring? That's what you got to ask yourself. If you have a job and you're afraid of getting fired, when you're fear setting, the question you ask is, what can I do to lessen the chances of me getting fired from my job? If that's the worst thing that could happen, what can I do to make sure that doesn't happen? Or what are the best things I can do? It might happen anyway, but what can I do to try to push that off? All right, if the worst case scenario of me dealing with a cop is I might get killed, what can I do to make sure that doesn't happen? What can I do to best position myself? Because listen, the cop could do whatever they want to do. All right, the cop busts in the door right now and starts shooting, you'll be dead. By the time you hear the gunshot, the bullet already hit you, right? But what can you do to mitigate the chance of that happening? How about you can come up with some ideas. I don't have to supply the ideas to you. You know what they are. Figure out what you can do to keep the worst thing from happening, and then ask yourself, if the worst thing happens, anything short of death, what can I do to get back to where I was at? What can I do to get back to neutral? How can I get back to square one if the worst case scenario happens? If my wife leaves me, what can I do to get back on my feet? If I get fired from my job, what can I do to get another job? If my business has to file bankruptcy, what can I do to start making money again? What can I do to start my next business? These are the questions that you ask yourself in fear setting. So even when you think the worst case scenario may happen, your question is, what can I do to get myself back to where I was even when the worst case scenario happened? That's the concept of fear setting. So any of you who's ever felt worried, stressed out, anxious, or just fearful of something that may happen in your life, what you need to do is look at the fear. Do not ignore it. Don't act like it's not happening. Don't try to deal with that anxiety every single day, not able to sleep, not able to eat. You can't even live a normal life. Deal with the fear. Look at it in its face. See it for what it is. Write it down and ask yourself, how can I deal with this? The challenge that a lot of people have in life when they had the same problem over and over again. You ever know anybody who just keeps having the same problem over and over again? So they never deal with the actual issue. They never deal with the root cause. The root challenge that a lot of people have, we deal with a lot of anxiety and stress and worry, is that they never deal with the fear that is in their way. Because all of those are different versions of fear. Anxiety, stress, and worry are all different versions of fear. They never deal with the fear, and therefore they keep feeling anxious, they keep getting worried, they keep being stressed out because they never actually deal with the thing. And Tim Ferriss came up with this great strategy for dealing with it called fear setting. Write down what's the worst thing that can happen. What can you do to get back to square one if it does happen? And what could you do to prevent it from happening in the first place? That's great questions that anybody can ask themselves. Point number 3. Today's topic is how to stop yourself from living in fear. If you are fearful of anything and you feel like it's dominating your mind, dominating your life, or if that thing ever comes around, you're just in such a fearful state you don't even know what to do. I'm gonna give you some stoicism right here. Okay, y'all know what stoicism is a philosophy of accepting your fate and dealing with life as dispassionately as possible. There's a book called Letters from a Stoic you can read, written by Louis Seneca, Seneca. Look it up. Fear itself, this is point number 3. Fear itself will not keep you from the thing that you're afraid of. I'm pausing just to let that sink in so you can think about it. The act of being fearful will not stop that thing, whatever you're afraid of, from actually happening. If you're afraid of a hurricane coming through South Florida this summer, just being afraid of it is not going to stop the hurricane. The hurricane does not consider your feelings when it decides if it's going to hit this city or not. If you're afraid of the bully beating you up and taking your lunch money, the fear of being afraid of the bully is not going to stop the bully from doing what the bully wants to do. If you're afraid of a cop doing something that causes you problems in your life, just being afraid of the cop is not going to stop the cop from taking the action that the cop wants to take. So just the act of fear alone is not stopping anything. So this is why it concerned me when I heard that gentleman, the NFL player, saying, well, I feel like if a cop comes around, I might not make it home that day, because other people are going to take up that exact same idea, that exact same thought, and they're going to start thinking the exact same way because of who said it. And it is completely irrational, of course. It's illogical, of course. It doesn't mean he's wrong to be that way, because all humans have emotions and we all have some irrational and illogical ideas in our heads. All of us do. No matter how smart you think you are, you got some irrational thoughts in your mind as well that you harbor and continue to feed on a consistent basis. You may not be aware of it, but you do it. The thing is this. The fear itself is not stopping anything. It's not going to stop anything from happening. It's not blocking anything. What could better be done anytime you feel like fear is in your way is use the fear setting, like I told you in point number 2. But the thing is this. If you think the presence of something is the danger, that doesn't stop the danger from occurring when the danger wants to occur. In other words, fear of a thing does not stop the thing. So the purpose of fear, ladies and gentlemen, as I told you from the beginning, was back in the caveman days, quote unquote, if we ever were cavemen, according to the history books, right? It was to keep us alive. Knowing when we need to fight to stay alive, fight the saber-toothed tiger, fight the other caveman, or we need to fight. We need to get out of there and run so that we can save our behinds for the next day. Understand that these days, that energy, that cortisol rush that you get from feeling fearful, from that anxiety, from that worry and that stress, that energy is not good for your health. All right, too much cortisol too consistently, all right, that'll start killing you. All right, you'll end up with heart disease or a heart attack. You'll kill yourself from the inside out. That's not good for your health. You don't want to live with that kind of energy on a consistent basis. You don't want to have to live life thinking that you either have to fight something or run away from something. It disturbs your sleep. So what you can do, this is the third way of dealing with fear, just accept the fact that sometimes things are going to happen and you can't control them. Now, you did what you needed to do in point number 2, right? I told you about the fear setting. So as long as you did the fear setting and you know how you can recover from a situation and or you know what you can do to best prevent the worst case scenario from happening, that's all you can do. You did everything you could do, and whatever happens next happens. Whatever happens, happens. Like, again, if you're afraid of a hurricane coming through your town, listen, you can get some shutters for your windows. You can purchase insurance on your house. You can get insurance for your car. You can board your crib up and go to higher ground whenever you think the hurricane's on the way. But you can't stop the hurricane from actually happening. Nothing you can do to stop it from happening if it's going to happen. So you can't live your life in fear of something that you don't control anyway, because it's like you're worried about something that's inevitable anyway. You might as well just enjoy your life because it's going to happen whether you worry or whether you're happy about it or whether you ignore it anyway. So this is why fear is such a poor use of energy when the fear is not activating you to action. If it's going to activate you to action, use that action for the fear setting exercise so you can prevent that thing from happening or set yourself up to recover from it happening. But don't allow that fear energy to just keep you sitting there doing absolutely nothing, waiting for the inevitable to occur anyway. Now you're wasting your time. And if you're wasting your time, you're wasting your life. Now, I'm going to recap these points Before I do that, I'm going to tell you about these two books. Two of these three books I got here in front of me, how you can get two of these books for free. I'll tell you about the third book in a minute. Then if anybody got a question, I will take it. So if you got a question, go ahead and post it in the comment section right now. But first, let me tell you how you can get both of these books free. First of all, this book right here is called The Mirror of Motivation, the Self-Guide to Self-Discipline. This book is for anyone who wants to step out of the old version of you, step into the new version of you. This is the first book you should read of mine. If you never read any book of mine, this is for the people who are ready to get your mind in the right space. The Self-Guide to Self-Discipline. It's not a long book. It's about 165 pages. I wrote this book for anyone who is ready to step into a new version of you, take the same actions as before or different actions. You're going to get completely different results simply because you change who you are being as a person. Not what you're doing, changing who you are being. And that's a step that most people never take in life. I already paid for this book, so you ain't got to pay for it. That's why I'm making it so easy for you to get it. Go to mirrormotivation.com. The book is paid for. All you do is cover the shipping. Mirrorofmotivation.com. This right here is called the Overseas Basketball Blueprint. This is for anyone who wants to play professional basketball overseas. Even if you've been overlooked, underrated, never got a chance, don't have an agent, have no good game film, but you think you got the talent to play overseas, go to balloverseas.com. This is a 237-page book. This is the blueprint. This is not a blueprint. This is the blueprint for playing basketball overseas. If you want to play ball overseas, go to balloverseas.com. That's the website, balloverseas.com. The book's paid for. Oh, yeah. The book is paid for. All you do is cover the shipping, balloverseas.com. Now, 3 points that I made here today. The topic, once again, is how to stop living your life in fear. As I told you, it was a story of a football player said a cop got called, or the cops was about to get called when he was in some dispute at a restaurant. And then he said, I feel like if a cop comes around, I might not make it home that day. So he's living in fear, or at least he says he's living in fear. We're just going to assume that he's telling the truth, that he's living in fear about a cop coming around because the cop might be white and he's black and he's seen some things happen. I'm here to say that he's not wrong for feeling that way, but here's what he or anyone else can do if you feel like you are living in constant fear of anything. Number one, understand that fear is a very powerful energy. It's also a very contagious energy. When fear takes over, people stop communicating. We get conflict. We get war. We get lack of communication. We get depressions and we get recessions. Personally, it's hard for you to function. You can't eat, sleep, or be happy. 50 Cent said he only stopped feeling fear about getting shot again when he went on the offensive. I'm not telling you to go on the offensive. What I'm telling you is find something that takes your mind off of the fear so that you can focus on being who you are and living your life. Point number 2, use the fear setting exercise that Tim Ferriss explains. Look at the worst case scenario. Ask yourself, how can I stop the worst case scenario from happening? If anything else happens, what can I do to get back to where I was from the beginning? And point number 3, fear itself will not stop the thing from happening. If you're afraid of a hurricane happening, that's not going to stop the hurricane. You're afraid of a bully beating you up, it's not going to stop the bully from beating you up. So figure out what you can do instead of worrying about what you can't control. And if something's going to happen anyway, if it's inevitable, all right, use the Stoicism philosophy and just accept it dispassionately and not whining and complaining about it because you knew it was going to happen anyway. If you know what's happening, then you won't be so surprised. Now, if anybody got a question, go ahead and post it in the comments section, or if you already posted it, I'm going to get to it right now. Hope everybody's had a great Friday so far. Somebody asked me, do I record these? Yes, they go on my Facebook page at Work On Your Game, Facebook/Work On Your Game, and I do post them on my IGTV. So if you just go to my profile, the IGTV is on it. Chris cleaned up. What's good? Let's see. I shout out Charlotte earlier. Motrell was good. We got Canton, Ohio in the house. Bogoja from New Jersey. Somebody said, do I categorize Eric Thomas and David Goggins as motivational speakers, not my level of thought leadership? I don't really think about I don't categorize them as anything. They are whatever they are. They are whatever they say they are. I don't really follow either of them, so you had to ask them what they categorize themselves as. Miss Sis was good. Let's see. Sports Lover said, I'm scared of sometimes dying while playing soccer because of a head collision. Not a lot of players have died, though, just injured. Well, you got 2 options. You could keep playing, and well, actually you got 3. You could play and be afraid of getting injured, which will probably hinder your performance. Or you could play and stop worrying about being injured, since, like you said, not many players have died. Or you got 4 options then. Third option is you can just stop playing soccer, so now you don't have to worry about that anymore. That ceases to be a problem for you. Or you can play and accept the fact that, you know what, you might be the 1% of players who gets a head injury and dies playing soccer. And if you die playing soccer, at least you died doing something you wanted to do. So those are your 4 options. But just being afraid on itself is not going to do anything for you. Amit said he got the Mirror Motivation today. It came in the mail. Shout out to everybody who got their Mirror Motivations in the mail, or who ordered their Mirror Motivation, didn't get it yet. Actually, anybody who ordered it, actually, no, we shipped out a few the other day, so some of y'all didn't get it yet. But if you already got it, your next step is to get this book right here. It's called Work on Your Game, Using the Pro Athlete Mindset to Dominate Your Game in Business, Sports, and Life. I took my whole philosophy, everything that I ever talk about, which would have been 250,000 pages, and I condensed it down to 250 pages. Right here in this book. This is a hardcover book. My whole framework, several frameworks that I use to go from the end of the bench in high school to a professional athlete, then transition that into the business world to be an entrepreneur, CEO of my own company, all here in this book. You do not need to be an athlete. You do not need to be an author or a CEO to learn from this book. It is not a how-to book. This is a business book about the frameworks necessary to dominate your game in business, sports, and life from the inside out, the mental game. That's what this book is about. Hardcover. When you order a copy of this book at workonyourgamebook.com, not only are we going to send you the book in the mail, of course, we're also going to give you over $1,200 in digital bonuses that you get immediate access to right now. So while you're waiting for the book to come in the mail, you're going to get $1,200 in digital bonuses related to this book right now. Then the book's coming in the mail, so you get the best of both worlds. You can't get a better deal than that. That's the best deal you could possibly get on this book, Work on Your Game. You cannot get that deal anywhere else except at workonyourgamebook.com. Somebody asked, how likely is it to get paralyzed? You're going to have to ask a doctor. You're asking the wrong person. So anybody else got a question, go ahead and post something. Give y'all like 30 seconds. Mirrormotivation.com, self-guidance, self-discipline. If you don't have this book yet, Facebook, you ain't got this book yet, I see y'all lurking over there. Mirrorofmotivation.com. The book's paid for. All you do is take care of the shipping. Instagram, y'all ain't got this? Mirrormotivation.com. The same as the title, just take out the. Mirrorofmotivation.com. Pay for the shipping. The book's already paid for. Overseas Basketball Blueprint. This is specifically for the ball players who want to play ball overseas because pro basketball is a buyer's market. Everybody cannot get on. There's not enough jobs for everybody. But if you want one, you need to know what to do. There are talented players who never play because they don't know what to do. I'm going to help you get on by reading this book, balloverseas.com, Overseas Basketball Blueprint, and workonyourgamebook.com. This book ain't free, but you get this hardcover book, $1,200 in digital bonuses, immediate access, then you get the book coming in the mail. And if you got all these books already, or you want something digital you can access right now, Work on Your Game University right there. That's where I do a daily masterclass. I have over 1,500 masterclasses. We got an app. There's an exclusive app. Let me see if I can show y'all the app. There's an exclusive app that we use that is specifically for Work on Your Game University members, game group members. That is, let me see. So this is Work on Your Game show. Every episode that's ever come out. So we got episodes number 0 all the way up to 1,500. It's 15 separate playlists that we put in here just so everybody can access every episode. This is a mobile app that is only for Work on Your Game University members. You get that at Work on Your Game U. Your first 2 weeks of membership are free. So you want to test it out and see if I'm telling the truth? Your first 2 weeks are free. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Everybody have a great Friday. Great weekend. We will be going live again tomorrow if I change the time, which I often do on Saturdays. I'll let you know. Just follow my story. Work on your game. We out of here. Dre all day.